Hello everybody, and welcome to How Haven Did It, the behind the DM screen of session 12 of my party's running of Hoard of the Dragon Queen. So welcome to the one shot that ended up being nothing to do with the plot, and how the campaign ended up going completely off the rails for one entire session, all because I had one idea of running a fight club. So in the story, it actually says that the players are trying to impress Yorif and the Ocean so that they help them out later on in the campaign. This is how they're building some allies, right? And this gentleman likes combat. He's a paladin. He shows justice, but he also values, fighting prowess and skill. So the fight pit was why I came up with it, and I was like, great, I'm going to use this. I'm going to have a fight club go on in the middle of this tavern, and that'll be a way for the monk and the barbarian to show off. Great. I didn't expect our barbarian to then not want to fight because she had been done so, and there was, as she said, that was what she was forced to do in her past, and so she was not about to fight for glory. The monk jumped in, not a problem. However, I then had one of our rogues, Fire, and the bard, Callie, and the cleric all decide to join in on this fight pit. And so this fight pit suddenly went from being something I thought was going to be like a one-off fight, one cool one-on-one combat, or maybe two one-on-one combat, to much larger. And it took up the entire session. At this point, we also ended up having a friend of ours who was part of my other campaign of the Wandering Few come into town from Scotland, and so I wanted her to have a chance to come in and play, and so she brought her character from her campaign in Scotland, which is how we ended up with the Furbog, wanting to play in this fight pit. And so originally the fight pit was supposed to be just going to be... So I had the plan of the fight pit, and I'd already put that in motion, and then we have our friend show up from Scotland, so how do I then have her play in the fight pit when she has played a necrotic druid Furbog? Fight pit was only supposed to be hand-to-hand combat. So I said, okay, we'll throw those rules out, and I tried to come up with ways to be able to have the Furbog play in this with the druid, so we have to allow magic, which means I really should allow armor and other weapons. So unfortunately, I ended up actually hurting my players a little bit, who were then helping out by playing these NPCs I'd come up with to help fight, because I had played them to be just hand-to-hand combat, so I'd stripped them of armor and weapons. And then we have to throw them back in, so we're having to throw things in, and I kind of screwed things up at the last minute, trying to include everybody, and so I do again apologize to my players, but that's you roll with what you're given, and we did the best as what we could with what we were given, because I really wanted to have Ilwyn be able to play. Yeah, so the fight between the druid and the rogue took way longer than I thought. It actually ended up, the combat itself ended up taking 45 minutes for this druid and this rogue to go at it. It was a lot of fun, but it also then took up 45 minutes. The monk did short work of my Dragonborn, which I guess shouldn't have been too bad. I feel, though, that if I'd actually put more thought into that NPC and actually made sure it had proper weapons and armament and everything, that might have actually helped out better. It ended up being a very short fight. It made Lutau feel really good, though. I feel bad for our player. Nahis was actually playing that one, so she had something to do with it. I feel bad, though, that it went down because I didn't set the player up right, and so, again, I apologize. But they did great. She did great. I want to give total props to my player who plays Nahis for rolling with giving a Dragonborn character right at the beginning of the session and being told, hey, you're going to play this, and she was able to then actually add in the armor and everything. So super props to her for pulling that off and doing really well with it, even though it ended up being a relatively short combat. And then we move on to Arkin, our cleric, fighting off against our bard. And that was probably some of the best spell-slinging combat I've seen in a while. The highlight that makes me laugh is the bard flying up to the top of the pillar, then Arkin dropping her radiant soul and sprouting wings and flying up to chase her just to have sleep cast on her, and she drops like a rock. It was a great use of spells in that situation, and then the silence being used to shut up the bard because it's a spell slinger that uses vocal magic. So I mean, come on, still just awesome spells slung by both of them. I think it was really good to see both of them stretch both of their abilities and go more combat, since we have the cleric who's been doing a lot of healing and playing support, as well as the bard who's been playing support and playing the face of the party. To have them actually go at it, I think also kind of impressed their other players and other characters in the group, because they actually got to see them seriously sling spells at each other. Awesome combat there. But again, this what was supposed to be like the first third of the night turned into the whole campaign night, to the whole session that night. I felt really bad that some people got left out of it because of it turning out that way. I still feel it was really fun, But this whole fight pit and this whole fight club thing just totally got away from me, and we never got anything done. However, because of that, I do feel bad about it. I'm going to actually give my party, if they actually watched this video, are now actually going to get a little bit of a secret, so I'm actually going to see if they're paying attention. Throughout this entire night, Remy was searching for the Kobold Eddie. She kept making perception rolls. In between some of the fights, she'd look at me and say, hey, I'm looking for Eddie again. I'd have her roll. And she did catch glimpses of what she thought was Eddie running around while the fight pit was going on. At the very end of this, as everybody was leaving the fight pit, Eddie's going to approach Remy and hand her a flyer that he found. The problem is, Eddie doesn't look like Eddie anymore. Eddie looks very much like a halfling underneath his robes, underneath his cloak. And he's actually managed to pull down the face and pull off the head a little bit and uncover his head, and is testing the waters of whether or not this is fitting and whether or not Eddie's disguise is working. So there's another hint as to what class Eddie is. Kind of curious if anybody has any ideas of what Eddie is. Feel free to make some comments below or shoot me messages. I'm always interested to find out what you guys think and whether or not you guys have figured it out. Have I given enough hints? Has the party figured it out yet? Has my players figured it out yet? Or have you figured out what class Eddie is playing? Thank you so much for watching. I've been Haven the Hare. I will never monetize this channel, but if you do want to support me, check out the chainmail dice posters I make in my Etsy store, as well as the card game that I make, 5 Minute Sword Fight. And with that, may you make all of life saving.